The customers grew, the budget grew. The peak was 5 million per month. I was responsible for delivery of the IPO. So I did some angel investing, freelancing, the pattern like 3-4 times, changing after 1 year, 2 years of certain things. Now create a business, which I can do for 10 plus years just because I'm super authentic.
What is up, everyone? I'm your host, Chris, and you're listening to Nonlinear, the podcast in which we unpack these strategies, hacks, and decisions high-achieving young professionals use in 2023 to design careers they love. In this episode, I speak with my friend Alexej Habinski, who's a growth marketer by the book. He did Rocket Internet's Growth Manager program in 2015 in Rocket's Prime, which then basically leads you up to become a CMO. Alexej managed an ad budget of around 5 million at Foodora and then stayed up until the exit at Delivery Hero. Afterwards, a personal odyssey for Alexej began, from angel investing to freelancing to starting an own company. At some point, Alexej realized the pattern that he was always quitting what he was starting after 1 or 2 years, and then tells us how he's been redesigning his life to find an operating system which is actually more resilient and fun at the same time, and around which he now builds his business. This is a super exciting episode. I'm stunned by how openly Alexej speaks about everything. Let's dive right in. Hey, Alexej, super happy to welcome you.
Hi, Christian. Nice to be here.
Hey, Alexej, so we just started the pre-con where we had just with you listening into one of the podcast episodes.
Yeah, I listened to Ben. It was a very exciting podcast. Actually, I also met him in person. And it's incredible how early he understood that the top-down mindset really makes everything easier, meaning that you first understand what are your values, what do you actually want in your life, and then you orient all your decisions to get there. Most people, including me, are drifting and don't really know what they want. I think that was really inspiring to see how such a young person actually figured it out. And then you also see where this gets you.
Have you worked with some kind of those frameworks already in your life, like some type of career planning, life planning framework? Because you're like LinkedIn, and your experience is, of course, super cool. Like what you've been doing back then. Like, how have you navigated your career up until now?
Yeah. So I think there were probably 3 phases in my career. The first one was when I was 17. I did some online marketing stuff on the internet when it was very nerdy and did it. And I was reading Oliver Samba on Gründerszene, and he was like the German entrepreneur, internet entrepreneur, and I was inspired by that. So at that time, I decided I want to be a success entrepreneur, 16, 17 years old. And then everything I did, I was optimizing for that goal. So I went to a good business school. I went to internships. I went to Rock Internet, actually. I want to become a founder there. I joined the company, and the goal of joining this company was to learn how to build companies. At some point, I realized, okay, now I'm in this company, but I'm in middle management. I'm not really learning how to build a company because now it's a big company. So when I joined, was like 100 employees, and then 2.5 years later was 1,500. And I was really good managerial position from age, but not really learning how to build a company and how to become an entrepreneur. So I left, and then I was pretty lost, and I did a lot of different things, freelancing and founding and not actually doing it, and investing and raising maybe a fund over several years. And then I was asked to join a company as a founder, as a co-founder. And now is the third phase, where I go back from lost to top-down mindset, where I basically try to understand how does my dream life look like? What are dimensions? And dimensions for me are living according to my values, trying to spend time in a fulfilled and content way, and also being successful. And as soon as I defined those things, it made all decisions much, much easier. On one hand, on the other hand, I also feel like I'm progressing much faster towards those things. And interestingly, the goal of becoming a successful entrepreneur is still really important for me, but it's not the only thing anymore. That's one of the main important things in my life.
Super interesting. And the form has changed, right, of entrepreneurship for you?
Yes. So I think when I was 16, 17, I even didn't know what entrepreneurship is. For me, entrepreneurship was, there's an article about you in a Founder magazine, and they refer to you as an entrepreneurship. So that's how much I knew. Yeah, actually, I had no idea. And then I thought entrepreneurship means raising some money and building a company and hiring people, and then you're an entrepreneur. And then I realized, also in my last company, that's not enough. Actually, then at some point, investors want to see actual results. They want to see revenues and they want to see profit. They want to see you building an actual business. And I realized an actual business is based on their custom problems, and you're building some kind of service or product that solves those problems, and people pay you for it. That's the core of the business. And then you maybe scale it with systems, people. So now I basically do a bootstrap business because I need to learn and I want to learn how to build a business bootstrapped. And then maybe at some point I can leverage myself with external money. But that makes much more sense. It's much easier, faster, low pressure. I even don't understand why I thought that raising money is the only way or the best way. I think it's, so I refer to it as playing the Champions League. But before you play Champions League, let's play the third league or second league or first league in your national league before you go to Champions League.
It probably comes from the Rocket Internet paradigm, right? They were able to raise super quickly because they copied existing businesses. So they basically de-risked everything. And this is where this mentality came from. Then you work for a couple of years for them. So you basically were born in this entire ecosystem. And that's why you had to de-educate yourself or relearn everything. How was this relearning phase, by the way? You touched upon a couple of points like before when you said, after Foodora, basically. So after you did the CMO or growth manager program there, then Foodora was acquired. I think then you left and then you freelanced a bit, and you mentioned that you were a bit lost. What happened in this period, and what happened in your mind from when to when was it roughly? And then you also mentioned a couple of companies. I think one of them is Anymove and the other one was something else.
Yeah, so let me allude a more chronological order. So basically, I joined Rocket Internet as a growth manager. Basically, it was a future CMO program. We were back then world champions in online marketing. I had some online marketing experience. So that was great. I was taught by the experts there in marketing, online marketing. And yeah, the business model of Rocket Internet was to copy existing business models in as many countries as possible and then sell them to someone else. But this doesn't mean that they're actually building businesses or entrepreneurs. They're just copying stuff. And the whole organization was optimized for that. So after I left Rocket Internet in this whole ecosystem, I realized that copying existing business models for many countries, that's an important skill, but so much is missing. So much is missing. And no one taught me that. So that was interesting. In Rocket, most of the time I spent was one company called Foodora, which we also worked together at. And it was a food delivery service, one of the first ones in Germany, delivering also, not just connecting the restaurant to customer, but also delivering. So it's a three-sided marketplace. It's a very exciting business model, actually. And I was the number 2 in marketing, responsible for the consumer and the courier side, going from, I still remember I was 22 years old, and they told me, okay, now you're the head of online marketing here. Here are your 8 people. Here's your 150K euro budget per month. Go. So, all right, let's go. I have no clue what I'm doing here, but it's going to be that hard in the magazine. But yeah, of course, I had no clue, even though I was taught, but still had no clue. So I did a lot of mistakes, but somehow it worked out. And the orders grew, the company grew, the customers grew, the budget grew. I think the peak was 5 million per month that I was responsible for. So I was number 2. Number 1 was Julian Dames, who's now the founder of Flink. So it was a very exciting time to work with him. And yeah, then I left because I wanted to found my own company. And how I approached this, I did a spreadsheet, did the scoring. Okay, so what are the industries? What's the margin, the fragmentation, and like all those things, the classic Excel founder. So then with this Excel, I terminated my contract with 5 months notice, look for a successor. And then when I left, I was like, okay, now I want to do this perfume brand that has high margins. But
was this a copying idea back then, by the way? Was it that you were looking at Flaconi already?
No, it was basically, I was thinking, okay, I can do marketing. So I do something that is heavy in marketing, and direct consumer brands is basically sourcing and marketing, nothing else. So I spoke to some people in the beauty industry and realized sourcing is also pretty easy. So I was like, okay, perfumes, high margin, then not so much competition, marketing, let's go. Yeah, and then it was a really strange thing. It's a really strange time because I didn't have the energy and the motivation and to do it, and no one understood why I'm doing it. I also didn't understand. It was a really strange feeling, which I never had because I was always like, I know the goal and I went there, and now I'm like, So now I'm about to found this company, fulfill my dream that I always had since I'm, whatever, 17 years old. And I couldn't do it. And then I think I was sick at some point for 2 weeks. And then after I was healthy again, I decided, no, so something's wrong. That's not the right thing. Let's look for a job or freelancing gig or something else. Yeah, and then I started helping my friends with marketing, and then worked out. And then at some point, someone asked me whether I also take money for it. So I started this interim CMO work, and that worked really well. And yeah.
And then you founded Anymove?
So it was a roller coaster. So I was always, so I did this interim CMO thing, which was not planned. It just happened because people asked me and it worked. But that was not my goal. My goal was to found a company. So what it is, I also started investing because Foodora was part of Delivery Hero. Delivery Hero did the IPO. So I was lucky enough to monetize some vested options. And so I did some angel investing. I wanted to found a fund. So because people ask me, but I can help them. That's why how I can get easily in touch with founders. And then I monetize it to investing. Even organized investment syndicates where with 15 other entrepreneurs, investors, we collectively invested 300, 500K, started smaller. But so did all of those things. And then I realized, actually, I'm not sure whether I want to be an investor because managing other people's money. I would rather like to build marketing teams and to help other founders to set up the marketing system. And also I realized that being like this interim CMO thing, freelancer, or building some random agency also didn't feel sexy. Also, and then I was asked, "Hey, don't you want to join Anymove?" Back then it was a different name, and I was like, "Oh wow!" So this is about a marketplace company in mobility world. I also work with Tier Mobility. It's a cool team, and so now I can become entrepreneur. What I wanted in the first place. So why not do it? And why not do it? And then I joined the team.
And then you left the operational position and now you're a board member there, right?
Exactly. So roughly 2.5 years after founding it, I left the operational role because, so as you can imagine, pre-product market fit, the idea changed a lot. The team changed. We scaled up and down as every company did in this time. And what the company is doing right now is something where I cannot contribute operationally as much. So basically, we went from a B2C company to providing a software for basically B2B, basically for car dealers and for current companies. So it's full B2B, even more enterprise, and B2C part is not so important anymore. So I realized it makes sense to leave operational role. And of course, I'm still a shareholder. I'm super interested in making it successful. So I'm still supporting my successor and David, the CEO, regularly.
These years seem very rocky, actually. From after Foodora to post Anymove, because you've basically done 2 or 3 bigger bets. Like I'm starting my own perfume brand. And you did the freelance gigs, then Anymove, and Anymove
The fund.
the fund. Sorry again, yeah, totally true. And nothing of them felt really great. So you were probably still operating, if I'm interpreting this correctly, you were still operating with an old Alexej operating system, right? So how did you cope with those missed bets? I assume that you didn't pull out like 5 million out of Foodora back then. I think the acquisition was somewhere in the 15 million. So it's, yes, you had a cushion and stuff, but it's probably not that you were like, okay, I never have to work again. So there was some pull to still keep on the grind, right? Like how did you regulate yourself in this time? And then at what time did you realize, okay, shit, I probably need to install a new operating system?
Yeah. So in terms of the acquisition, it was actually a really nice 9-digit exit, but the employees just has very little equity. So still, your analysis is correct that I still need to work. So that was a nice cash in. And you're also right, it was very rocky. And so my analysis that whenever it got a little bit more tricky, now so why did it not feel right? It's because there were some challenges and I didn't want to go through those challenges. So I think I basically told myself sorry, which was not true at that point. I rationalized I didn't feel right. And after Anymove, I was like, okay, so maybe it's time now to understand why I changed several times now. Like there was actually a pattern. Like 3-4 times changing after 1 year, 2 years of certain thing. And I also look at entrepreneurs that were successful, be it Oliver Samwer or others. All of them have in common that they usually do something for at least 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. If you look at the richest people in the world, they all do something for 30 plus years. So basically, why can I do the same if that's the common denominator of successful entrepreneurs? That was the question. So I started with coaching and therapy and reading and self-reflection, and it took some time. So I tried to answer this question. And what I realized is that I try to be a person I'm not in several many times. And then at some point when it gets tough, then being this other person becomes more and more difficult. This means for me that I need to understand who I am, what do I want, what do I value. Because if I know that, it doesn't matter what happens to me. I'm still authentic. I'm still who I am. I'm still doing what I want, still doing what I like. So that was the big realization after talking to a lot of people and also a lot of introspection, also some support. And now I have this map of myself, which I'm still iterating every 2, 3, 4 weeks probably. And I try to create a business which I can do for 10 plus years just because I'm super authentic with that business. So that's what I realized. And that's why I'm like, I look back at the last 14 years and I just try to find a common denominator. So marketing is one, building systems is one, setting up marketing teams is one, but the venture game and software and technology is one. So let's try to combine all of those.
It's literally amazing. This feels like the iteration on Ben's episode, literally what you're saying. This is like really goes deep in the operationalization. How can we, without going too deep in the nitty gritties, again, like my favorite question, which I'm slowly installing over time here is, what's the most tangible takeaway regarding this map which you're creating about yourself? Like maybe even where do you do it? Do you do it in Miro, in Gdocs, in Notion? And are there any super effective levers? And this can be like, hey, just speak to a coach, just go to a therapist, just talk to your 5 best friends. What's your view on this? Yeah.
So I'm not sure which one is the biggest. I can tell you the biggest unlocks for me on the journey, the directionable. The one was Miro, in fact, because I'm a person who thinks a lot and have all my thoughts, and I didn't know how to bring them or how to document them in a way that I can look at them and optimize them. And I tried writing, but writing is 2-dimensional or 1-dimensional, basically. Just write on the page and then there's the next page. But Miro, you can zoom out, zoom in. You can have different things. I can reposition them. It was actually a colleague, Julian, now from Anymove. He showed me his Miro world, and I was like, wow. And I used it, I applied it, and now it's much, much easier to organize what is in my head on paper. And it's not the organizing that is unlock. The unlock is that you can look at it and you can iterate it. And it's much, much easier to iterate something that's already written down than if it's in your head. And Miro just makes it much, much easier to organize what is in your head. And then iteration is a big unlock. So that's one. And the second one is, it's a principle that I heard from the Shoko founder, Daniel. Crawl, walk, run. Everything in life is crawl, walk, run. So the first tries, whatever you do, whether it's creating the life map or doing marketing or creating a company, whatever, the first time you do it, you always suck. And then if you do it more and more times, then it tends to be good. And then at the end, you become really good. So first you crawl, then you walk, and then you run. And I think in this introspection and self-reflection, just start with something. Just write 3 main values, or just write down what makes you happy, or just write down what's your goal. And then over time, iterated by talking to people, by getting input. But my problem was I didn't start, and that's why. So I didn't do the crawling because I was afraid that the crawling is so slow. So that's why I didn't start crawling. But when I did, it was much, much easier to progress.
Man, I have a super, super nice example here, top of mind. It was just when we played a paddle last Friday that we had the first, after we met again, which was like 3 or 4 months ago. super randomly in Mitte somewhere when I was having lunch on my own, and then you passed by and you were like, "Hey man, this is my former intern," sitting there eating. Let me just sit with him, which was like super cool to reconnect with you. So, anyways, on Friday we had our first more or less like conflict while playing paddle. And what I'm just realizing is, and I haven't written this down, but I should have. So we got into this habit of playing paddle together. Alexej is getting very competitive in it, and I'm like an original tennis player, so I'm not too bad at paddle, but play too infrequently. And so Alexej has this very competitive angle. I'm like we currently also played as a form of catch up. And then on Friday we lost again our match after actually being on a very good level already, and it was more or less just psychological. And so we got a bit annoyed at each other, and I think what got very clear here is that I also got annoyed with myself because I'm actually not doing sports only for the sake of just playing. So there needs to be a competitive element, even for me, although my primary purpose is also spending time with you and reconnecting, and just because I really enjoy it. And it's probably somewhere similar for you, but there's of course also there's the competitive edge. So I got annoyed at myself and we got annoyed at each other. And this kind of just shows me that there has to be some type of utility when you do the sports, right? So some type of probably competitiveness and fierceness, and just putting this onto paper and then testing it and iterating it and also being preventive about like next events which you then organize in this way could be a bit over engineered here in this episode, but I had to put it out there.
So the learning here is that it's easy to iterate code. It's easy to iterate a Facebook ad. It's obvious. Everyone does it. But what is counterintuitive, that it's the same about your thoughts and your behavior. And basically what we did is, Christian, so we started because we met, we had fun, we played, we talked. So we crawled, yeah, and I realized, okay, in this regard, it doesn't work so well. So now we iterated. So now we don't play as much paddle anymore, but we just spend our time talking rather. So that's the iteration. And that's what's so counterintuitive. Yeah? So see your own behavior as a system, a process, and just realize that the beginning is always not perfect because you don't know what perfect is.
Yeah. Hey, and I don't know whether you wanted to make 3 points out of it. So first unlock is Miro, second unlock is iterative or iterations on behavior. Was there a third one?
Okay. Yes, coaching and learning basically. So I think there are certain areas in the life which are extremely important for a good life. One is health, which is usually around exercise and eating well. The other one is business, whatever it is that you're doing, you want to be good at it. And then the third one is emotional. And I think it's fine to have a personal trainer or something like this. It's fine to have a business coach. Still not everyone got it, but I think it's fine. But to have an emotional coach, or as most people call it, therapist, has still this kind of stigma. But I think that emotional intelligence, and this is what you basically, a lot of the therapy is about. Emotional intelligence is one of the most important skills. So a huge unlock for me was working my emotional intelligence, and it's incredibly hard to do it by yourself. You need someone to help you with that. That's the third biggest unlock. You can just pay out of pocket. It's not that expensive. If you don't want to deal with some health insurance stuff. So I would probably advise just get some therapy sessions and pay out of your pocket.
Amazing. Then let's maybe use this also to switch gears into online marketing or marketing in general, and also your current service offering. And I like full transparency here. I already told you, like before the convo, I of course, like everyone does his research. And then I also had a quick chat with a friend with whom I also recorded another episode and asked him, hey man, like you've been looking for an interim CMO. What would you ask? What would you actually try to figure out? And he, like David Chevalier, like you'll listen to this episode, you'll probably get to know him soon. Like he met the co-founders of Chili Piper, I think, because they co-organized an event over the weekend. So what he did is he sent me a LinkedIn post, which you commented, where there was basically the discussion about brand equity, or like really marketing focusing also on a more, maybe even a cultural identity and strategic aspect versus being fully performance oriented. You, I think, brand yourself, or like you're about system design, so like building scalable engines for companies. Like, how do you, or what do you think, what's on in your head when I drop all of these things which I just said?
As mentioned before, I changed my setups a lot of times, so that has some disadvantages. But the big advantage is that I have seen so many companies and their marketing systems and the marketing teams and the marketing strategies and saw them over time, how they developed, whether it was successful or not. So probably I worked with more than 30 directly, and I spoke with way more. So I have quite some data points about the setups. And what I realized is that depending on the stage of your company, you need something completely different in terms of marketing. I found this framework where there are 6 levels of a marketing team or marketing function. The first level is you're the founder. You have an idea and you just go out. You maybe have an offer or product idea and you just talk to customers and try to sell it somehow. That's the first. You don't need marketing. You just talk to people and try to sell by yourself, maybe with your founders. Second level is where you have different customers, different offers, different marketing. So you go really broad and try to figure something out that works. And ideally, at some point, you hit product market fit. So you, in your experimentation, very broad experimentation, you found something that actually works, where customers happy, and then you're like, wow, seems like I have something here. I want to scale. Now I want to make a real business out of it. So then comes level 3, and that's where I call it flip the switch. That's where everything changes, because in the first 2 levels, you need to go broad, you need to try, you need to experiment as diverse, as variable as possible. But then if it's about scaling, what works, it's about focus, it's about processes, it's about systems, it's about optimizing, not going to an adventure. Really different setup. And it's pretty difficult to go from level 2 to 3 because you need to deconstruct the company or the marketing function and reconstruct in a different way. Then if you go to 3 to 4, then you have more marketing channels, more funnels. If you go to 4 to 5, you have maybe more offers so that you can increase the lifetime value. And then level 6 is basically having more customers, going to more markets. And then imagine it goes on. But that's not where I have so much experience.
Just going international or going cross products, or what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's, so if you think about Facebook, for example. So basically, Facebook is, so Mark Zuckerberg basically has a lot of different business units. Or Amazon, right? Amazon has Amazon Web Services, and they have the marketplace, and they have the Echo. So at some point, companies become all about capital allocation. But that's not that's above my pay grade. Yeah, I'm focused on where they have a product and focus on the marketing system to bring the product to the market. And where come brands? Where does brand come into play? It comes into play when you have multiple marketing funnels, you have multiple offers, then you have this overspill effect from one funnel to the other, from one offer to the other. Then it makes sense to have a really neat brand and communicate about the brand, because your offer is just broad.
So it's stage 2 or 3?
It's actually stage probably 5, where
Okay.
So between 4 and 5. So if I translate this to revenue, probably it's around, start thinking about it at 4 or 5 million revenue per year. That's where you should early start thinking about it, because before it's about having one customer ICP, one customer profile, having one offer, and having one funnel. So basically, you figure out who has a big problem and how to solve it, and then you just try as many people as possible that have this problem. And in B2B, often it's actually outreach, whether it's via LinkedIn or cold email or cold calling even. That's what usually is enough to get to a certain point. In B2C, there are different ways. Either it's some paid ads on one channel, or using an existing community, like consumer brands, often Instagram influencer based. So but usually it's one thing that gets you to a certain level, and only if you diversify the funnels and diversify the offers, because the one thing that you use to scale is completely saturated. Yeah, only then you go broad, and then it makes sense to focus on a brand. And so that's why in marketing, it's very confusing, because the founders usually they don't know which level they are. They don't know how does a good marketing setup look like, level 2 versus 3 versus 4 versus 5. If you have been in level 2 to 4, you don't know how 5 and 6 looks like. So if then someone who has been at 5 talks about brand, and you're at level 2, you think, oh wow, this person at this really big company talks about brand, so probably he knows what he's talking about. He does, but for the level where he has been in, and not for your level. So it's relatively difficult without really knowing where you are right now and what you need. It's very difficult to take advice from the internet, because marketing can be everything and nothing.
And how can founders self-educate? Like, I think it's probably super interesting for first-time founders, right?
Yes.
Like, how can they, or like non-marketing founders basically, or a team which doesn't cover these functions, how can they figure out, do you have a self-assessment or something?
Yeah, it's a very good idea. I thought I actually about it last week, so I guess I should have one. So what I think makes most sense is to basically talk to founders that are 2 steps ahead and ask them how they went there. So basically, I have, let's say, 500,000 of revenue, and I want to go to 3, 4, 5. Just ask people that are today at 8 million or 5 million. Yeah? How did you get there? I think that's the best way. Basically, to ask people that have gone there, but they shouldn't be 4, 5, 7 steps ahead. They should be 2 steps ahead, so they can help you to go to the next step. I think that's the most actionable way. And the other one is, so there's now is a big trend of productizing services and all. So that I spoke of marketing, but it's similar in operations, product, and tech, and so on. There, always those setup levels. So they're a big trend of experts, advisors, coaches, building those companies which can help you to go from one level to the other. So you don't need to go yourself.
Hey, and finally, what are you currently building?
So I call it CMO-as-a-Service company, because what is the role of a CMO? Usually it's to upgrade the organization to the next level. So CMO is thinking half a year plus ahead. So it's about upgrading company, usually between level 2, 3, 4. You cannot afford a CMO, doesn't make sense for the CMOs as well. So I basically help you to upgrade from level 2 to 3, 3 to 4, maybe even 4 to 5. Another program which you go through mix of different elements, but I'm confident that I can help you to go through the next level in your marketing setup.
And only B2B, B2C, like what's the...
Yeah. So of course, most of my experience is B2C. I also have some B2B partners which have really nice results. So right now I'm relatively agnostic, and so I'm personally in level 2 right now, where I go relatively broad, so that at some point I can go to level 3.
Nice.
But I need to first go broad to go focused.
And like only in Germany or Europe, or only in the also in the US?
Yeah. So I think what makes most sense is to have a similar time zone: Europe, South Africa, Middle East. I think that's the regions. I went once to a workshop. I did once a workshop in Cairo of the gorillas of Egypt. That was very exciting. Also, at foodora, I worked with 20 different countries across 4 continents. It was interesting to organize calls where Australia and Canada and Europe were in the same call. So I like to work international. I think it's the borders are not so important here.
So you've worked with, so you're currently in stage 2, you're saying, and you've even worked with people in Cairo. When I think different cultures, different verticals you're probably addressing right now, different models, so B2C, B2B, software, non-software, it seems like there's crazy diversity you're currently dealing with. And at the same time, probably some challenges which are similar, right? Is there anything which you could lead us through or give us your insights which you're currently gathering?
Yeah. So what I realized is that, and there's a quote from Alexej Habinski which really stuck with me: who you are is what you do. So this means that if you really want to change what you do and the outcomes, and usually they come to me because they want to change something, you need to start with yourself and change who you are. And this starts usually with the founder or the CMO or whoever is responsible owning the marketing revenue function, and this continues with the team that's already there in the setup. But what I realize is that the most important aspect is the mindset and the identity of the responsible person. So if they think, I am not good at marketing, the marketing setup they have will not be good. It's a limiting belief. So basically, my main job is to change the mindset and the identity of the person responsible for marketing. That's the biggest unlock, actually, in my work. But it's a little bit counterintuitive, and also it's a little bit hard for people because change is hard. But that's what I realized. And because in the end, marketing can be very simple. So what is marketing about? Marketing is about creating revenue. What is revenue about? Revenue is some person, some human deciding to send you money. Those humans decide for emotional and for rational reasons. Those humans have people influencing them, their spouse, the boss, the CFO, the Instagrammer, on the TikToker, the president, whoever. There are some people influencing them in the decision. Usually there's a certain path where they think about it in this decision, where you need to take their hand and say, hey, no more, I got you covered. This is what you need to think about. Usually they want to see other people that are using it. So they need some kind of social proof. So those are things about humans that are true for everyone. So there's some truth behind all of that. And as soon as people are willing to accept that actually it can be done, and it's all about them changing, then it works really well.
And let's also move, this is now on the more abstract level, on a very tangible level. How would this look like? Let's assume you go into a startup in Berlin and they are not that good at marketing right now for whatever reason. Maybe it's the product, maybe it's the distribution. But like, how would the mindset level look like for them when you say it's about the mindset?
Yeah. So at every level, it's a different mindset that is necessary. So to make a very simple example, so level 2 means going broad and trying and experimenting and doing. And level 3 is about having the right strategy and focusing on what really works. And that's a huge change because usually as an entrepreneur in the beginning, you need to produce volume. You need to produce a certain number of podcasts. Yeah? At some point, more podcasts will not bring you anywhere. Like going from 100 to 101 podcast, it's about then maybe having the right people or having the right content of the podcast. It's not about volume. It's about doing the right thing. And that's a huge change in how they see their business, how they see themselves. They need to think more. So do less and think more so that you do the right thing. And that's just a huge change that they need to go through. But yeah, that's the only way to up level.
Cool. So it's like okay. So it's the shift in the mindset. That's how you
So the shift in the mindset is usually what enables the up leveling.
Mm-hmm. And super interesting. This basically also applies to the entire conversation, what you've told us in the very beginning. Let's just do a couple of rapid fire questions just because I'm interested in this stuff. What are you currently listening to or reading?
That's funny. This is the book I will be reading now.
Nice. Yeah, no,
Mindset. It's basically the person who invented the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I'm reading this list right now. So my approach is basically what is currently in my head, and then I try to find the best book in the world about this topic and learn from the best.
Nice. Who's currently inspiring you, or who's the most inspiring person who you draw all of these steps from?
Yeah. So right now I'm mostly focused on people in a similar industry. So people that have built a consulting, a coaching company to 8-digit revenue level. So it's Alexej Habinski in the States, and it's Andreas Baulich in Germany, who is a bit of controversial figure, but he's a genius. So
nice. And then last one, what's your current pedal score and what's your aspired pedal score until end of year?
It's way too low. I'm a little bit embarrassed with my current pedal score.
Then let's just do the aspired one.
I don't know. If I can go to level 2, then I think it's good. I started this year, and level 2 is usually after 2-3 years. So if I can do it in 1 year, I think I will be happy.
Okay, nice. Hey, Alexej, thank you very much for this very, I don't know whether the word is substantiated, but it was like there was lots of content dense and still very, as always, very calm and super insightful discussion, yeah, or conversation.
Christian, thank you. It was a lot of fun, and I hope some people will take something valuable out of it.
Thanks for listening to Nonlinear. If you like the content, subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. That's @IamKrishi3, 3 as the number, and Krishi with SCHI. Reach out on any of the platforms if you have comments, questions, or just want to chat.